Hi there, Evan here with Crypto and Markets for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. Different topic today. What I wanted to talk about was the Iranian sanctions and the geopolitical situation surrounding it and how it's affecting the oil markets. To briefly summarize, in the middle of last year, President Trump announces the US is going to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. They then ask OPEC Plus to increase production, to keep the price from rising, to make up for the lost barrels. In June, they go ahead and do so. And then fast forward to just before November, when the sanctions on the Iranian oil industry were supposed to take effect. Some countries had gone to the US and requested exemptions because their refineries were designed specifically only to take Iranian oil. And they didn't feel like they'd been given enough time to find an alternative. So the US listened, they offered waivers. 5 of the countries went ahead and used the waivers: Japan, South Korea, India, China, and Turkey went ahead and used it. Fast forward to yesterday, US announces the waivers as of May 2nd are done. And ultimately their goal, they say, is to get Iranian oil exports down to zero. I'm here to outline that I don't think it's even remotely the case. There's plenty of ways around sanctions. In the long run, they're really kind of ineffective anyways. So I'm here to go ahead and explain that. Now, before I get into the why the sanctions are going to ultimately be ineffective, I'm sure you're going to ask, do I think OPEC Plus is going to increase production again to make up for the difference? Yes, I think they will. It'll be at the June OPEC meeting. They have another monitoring committee meeting in May, which is to go over the compliance to the current OPEC Plus deal. Their actual meeting is in June. That's where they'll make the decision to ultimately increase production. In May, they'll discuss it. In June, it'll come into force, basically. It'll be formally announced and then come into force. Now, one way some people have said to me is the US will go to Russia, tell them to pressure the Saudis into doing it. Now, as we know, yesterday, the US said they had promises from the Saudis and UAE. They were going to increase production anyways, which is one of the big reasons why I think they'll increase production. The US, Saudis, Israelis, they are allies. And typically over time, you can look this up, when the US asks OPEC to increase production, with some resistance, they typically bend to the will and go ahead and do so typically. For other reasons, which I won't get into in this video, but when the US asks OPEC to increase production, they do so. Now again, this whole thing with the Russians, them pressuring the Saudis, the US, it looks like, is going to offer some sanctions relief to Russia. Really, I candidly don't think a lot of this is true. Whether the sanctions are there, the sanctions aren't there, Russian production would be where it is right now. Remember, as well, that Russia is in the OPEC Plus deal not because of oil. It's because of natural gas and the interest they have, of course, with the exports of natural gas that they send into Europe. Then, of course, all roads in that lead to Syria. There's a route that's been blessed by the Russians, comes out of Iran, goes through Iraq, goes through Syria, into Europe. That was, of course, up against a Qatari pipeline that went through Qatar, went through Saudi Arabia, went through Syria, that was US backed, that would send natural gas into Europe. And of course, by the looks of it, that was a big reason for the Syria conflict from 2012 onward. People don't mention it, of course, in the media, but put 2 and 2 together. virtually all Middle Eastern wars are about energy somehow. That one looks like it was about natural gas. So there's that element to it. Now, going back to Iran, look, there's a big buyer just to the east of them who's buying oil for their strategic petroleum reserve and is price sensitive. That would be China. Again, China, we all know, isn't going to go along with the sanctions anyways. China and the US are in a trade war. They know the Iranians don't have too many other buyers now. So they'll come in, they'll negotiate a deep discount, and get the barrels they need. Also, as well, in the western side of Iran, they share an oil field with Iraq, which creates a situation to create a simple oil swap and to get the oil out that way. In fact, look at the Venezuela sanctions. How are they getting around this? They're now doing oil swaps with the Russians. Why the Russians? Because the Russians have a stake in many of the oil fields in Venezuela. Again, creates that common partner. Now again, oil is up about $2.50 in the last 2 days on word of these waivers being ended. But for the reasons I outlined here, I don't think it's going to have much of an impact on the oil market, if at all. Whatever barrels are lost, now that the waivers are gone, I think OPEC Plus is going to be more than willing to increase that production. And also, as well, you have Libya in there also, but as long as it doesn't go west or south of Tripoli, the oil production should stay largely unscathed. Again, there's the hiccup here and there, but they tend not to last long. But going back to Iran, that's really the situation behind it. In fact, if you follow the work of Anas Al-Haji, great website he has, I'll link it down below, he's outlined some ways as well where the Iranians can get around these sanctions. Now, in general, me and him, as far as it having not much of an impact on the oil markets, if at all, we both agree with this perspective. That's all I wanted to say. I want to go ahead and put that out there. It's a bit of a longer video because there's a lot with geopolitics, there's a lot of elements at play here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Smash that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and most importantly, follow me on